Hello, my name is Darren Thomas. I'm the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add one more row to a data set or to add multiple rows to a data set. So why don't we start with a brief review. Here I have some code that has been looked at in other videos in this particular series, and I have a vector here called item, and inside this vector I use the concatenate function, and I have these different strings inside there: shoes, plates, hats, books, plates, books, etc. Notice how I put all of the different strings inside quotation marks. This is important for R. And also I separate each string by a comma. So what R knows now is that there should be 6 rows of data, or 6 pieces of not 6 rows of data, 6 pieces of information within this particular vector. Now for row number 2 of our code, I have the object or the vector cells, and in this one I use the concatenate function, and I have the values 9, 10, 6, 4, 3, and 9. And so I have two vectors here. Each one has 6 pieces of information, if you will. And what I did in row number 3 is I created a data frame where I combined these. And I combined them in an object that I call store.data. And I used the data.frame object to combine them. So if I run all this, you can see right here, I'm going to type in this so you can see it. And you can clearly see that I have 6 rows of data right here inside my new data frame called store.data. Now, imagine you forget to put in a piece of information. It's kind of like one of those, oh, I messed up moments, and you need to add one more row of data. In order to do that, you have to use a function called the rbind function, R-B-I-N-D function. So I'm going to show you how to add one row of data. So I'm going to reuse my object called store.data. I don't want to create a new data frame because I want to add to the existing one. So I have to reuse the name, because what will happen is R will rewrite over the store.data object to include my new row of data. So store.data, then I use the rbind function. Then I put in the name store.data because that's where my information is at, and then I have to tell it what I want to add to this particular data frame. So I use the concatenate function, and I type in my item information and then my number. Now this is important. When you do the concatenate function to add a single row to a data frame, you must use, in our particular situation, you must reuse one of the existing levels that are inside the factor. When I made my data frame here in line number 3, R automatically turned my item vector into a factor variable, which has different levels inside it. We've talked about factor variables before. And so in order to add this new information, I must use one of the existing factor variables. Otherwise, I'll have a problem and I'll get an error message. So the first row of data, the first piece of information here is for the row that contains the items. And I must use one of the existing levels inside my factor. Of course, there are ways to get around this, but for the sake of simplicity, this is what we're going to do in this example. Secondly, I'm going to have to include a value for my sales row as well. And so these are what I'm doing in this particular line of code. And so now I press Control Enter, and let's see if we got everything here working. All right, now you can see right here that I now have 7 rows of information inside my store.data. Remember, originally I only had 6. But through using the rbind function and understanding how to put my code in, I now have 7. Now, normally we would never put in just one row of data, new data. Sometimes we have to put in lots and lots of new information. Now, in order to do this, we would have to, what we would call, combine data frames by their rows. So what I need to do first in order to show you how to add multiple rows is I first need to make a second data frame that has the information I want to add to my first data frame. So the second data frame we're going to call more.data, and we're going to use the data frame function, and we're going to do item equals, and we're going to just put in shoes, and we're going to put in hats, and we're going to put in plates. All right, these are all existing factor levels inside my factor level variable from my original data frame. So this is the information I want to add for items. Now I need to add information for my sales row, or for my sales column, if you will. Let's put sales equals C, and then we need to put in some numbers, 2, 7, and 5. So I'm creating a data frame called more.data, and it has 2 columns of information, item and sales. Items has the string values shoes, hats, and plates, and sales will have the values 2, 7, and 5. I press Control Enter, and just to make sure it looks nice and neat, you go more.data, and there you go. You can see it right there. Now listen carefully, please. Now I'm going to add the information from more.data to store.data. But just to make sure you remember, recall that store.data now has 7 rows of information in it. When I add the data from more.data to store.data, I will now have 10 rows of information. And we do all this with the rbind function. So I'm going to type in store.data. So when I do this, I'm going to rewrite the information that's on store.data with all the information that I'm going to put inside my code right here. So rbin and store.data. Oops. This is the row. This is the one of the data frames. The data frame we're going to add stuff to. And then the second one, where's the data coming from, is more.data. So those are the 2 data frames that we're using, and we're going to combine them by their rows. So the important thing to remember here is that both data frames must have the same columns in them, otherwise you will have problems. So now I press Control Enter, and so let's make sure that it looks like it should. We go to store.data, and there you can see that we now have 10 rows of data, just like I told you previously, all lined up nice and neat here as it should be. So in this video today, we reviewed how to create a vector, obviously, and how to combine 2 vectors to make a data frame. From there, I showed you how to how to add a row of data to an existing data frame, as shown right here. And it looks like line number 5 right here. After we did that, I showed you how to create, not how to create, but how to also add multiple rows to a data frame, as shown in the line of code here in line number 8 by using the rbin function. So we thank you for listening to the video today, and we look forward to you checking out further videos in the future. Thank you.